as well. Okay, so we're looking at the New Madrid seismic zone, guys. This is really big. This is actually where the Aleph Tav cross is, or the Aleph Tav sign is appearing. It's appearing over the New Madrid seismic zone. Have you looked into this before? This is massive. Let me just read to you a little bit of this, just Wiki. We're gonna look a lot at Wiki. Wiki actually has some pretty decent stuff. I've, obviously double checked as best as I can. So the New Madrid seismic zone, NMSZ, sometimes called the New Madrid fault line, is a major seismic zone and a prolific source of intraplate earthquakes within the tectonic plate in the southern and midwestern United States, stretching to the southwest from New Madrid, Missouri. The New Madrid fault system was responsible for the 1811 through 1812 New Madrid earthquakes and has the potential to produce large earthquakes in the future. Since 1812, frequent smaller earthquakes have been recorded in the area. Okay, that is massive. There's so much with what I just read. This is huge because we're going to talk about the War of 1812. How many times have I told you that we're in a war cycle right now? Absolutely massive. We're in a war cycle. I've been talking about this. We're in the World War III cycle. Oh my goodness. The fact that in 1812, which is also a war in American history, a lot of people are probably rusty on it. If you're rusty on it, we're going to brush up on it today. The fact that, oh my goodness, I'm not going to interrupt. Let's take a look at so what would happen if the NMSZ actually started having movement and it started becoming awake and active with a bunch of earthquake activity? Well, in a report filed in November 2008, the U.S. FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, warned that a serious earthquake in this zone could result in the highest economic losses due to a natural disaster in the United States, further predicting widespread and catastrophic damage across Alabama, Arkansas, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Mississippi, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, and particularly Tennessee, where a 7.7 magnitude quake would cause damage to tens of thousands of structures affecting water distribution, transportation systems, and other vital infrastructure. The earthquake is expected to result in many thousands of fatalities, with more than 4,000 of the fatalities expected in Memphis alone. And of course, I'm not gonna like go through this because they're like, oh well, here are the probabilities. Here are the chances of this sort of thing happening, right? And they're going to go and give you some kind of statistics based more off of science. But what we do here at Overcome Babylon is we combine biblical analysis with what God is actually showing us in advance with science. But God comes first before the science. And what I'm telling you is the fact that there is war brewing right now in the United States with the southern border, with Israel and the Middle East, with Ukraine supporting them. There's already war happening. If history repeats itself like it looks like it might, we might actually see the New Madrid become active and there might be some movement there and it might actually be very catastrophic. It's very possible because did you know that there's a place called Caddo Lake? Caddo Lake is actually right there on the border between Texas and Louisiana. And it's in the northern Harrison County and southern Marion County in Texas and western Caddo Parish in Louisiana. The lake is named after the Caddoans or Caddo Native Americans who lived in the area until their expulsion by the United States in the 19th century. The U.S. forced most of them to move west to Indian Territory. Now, here's the thing. Here's what I want to focus on like crazy. Check this out. According to that Native American tribe that got kicked out of there, right? The Caddo, according to the Caddo legend, the lake was formed by the 1811 through 1812 New Madrid earthquakes. Guys, I'm going to show you in a second the Google map on this. This lake is massive. And according to the legend of the Caddo, this lake did not exist before the earthquake of 1811 through 1812, which we're going to look at. There may be some truth to the legend, as Reelfoot Lake in Tennessee has been documented as formed by that earthquake as well. But most geologists believe the lake was formed by earlier. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Most geologists, okay, I'd rather go off the Native Americans. They probably, they're not Freemasons. They probably have more truth in their documentation of things than all the controlled narrative that we're fed by Hollywood and the media industrial complex. Check out Lake Caddo here. Check this out, guys. Look how massive that lake is. According to Native American legend, this didn't even exist before the New Madrid earthquake. And let me just go ahead and zoom out a little bit. You can see Again, I'll show you in a second. The New Madrid, I showed you kind of on the map. Oh, it's over here in like Missouri area, but the New Madrid, the effects of it are so massive because of the way the tectonic plates and everything are shaped. But this lake is said to have been formed by the earthquake there. I mean, this is massive. Now let's take a look at, again, that April 8th, 2024 a solar eclipse. Guess what? It's actually going through almost on the center line, right through Caddo Lake. This is, so right there, that red button on screen, that is Caddo Lake. And it just barely misses the exact center, but you better believe that the solar eclipse is going to be visible in the Caddo Lake area. This is massive, guys. This is so massive. Not only does the solar eclipse go through Caddo Lake, but it also goes through the New Madrid fault zone. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up. Now, let's take a look at what happened back in those days of the War of 1812, shall we? Let's take a look now. Let's take a look. The War of 1812, well, right before the war, just a few months before the war started, guess what? There was a solar eclipse. Oh, guess what? It was visible in the 13 colonies. They could see it. Because remember, American independence, we talked about this last live. American independence, 1776. But it wasn't, the Revolutionary War wasn't officially over until the Treaty of Paris of 1783. And just 3 decades later, in 1811, you have a solar eclipse that the 13 colonies can see that thing, okay? They can. Again, America's freshly formed. It's just a baby country. And because they're just a baby country, well, the British, well, they're still a little bit salty about that war that was just fought 3 decades earlier, and they kind of start stirring up problems for the original, the original colonies and those newly independent nation of America. There's friction between the crown and the colonies once again. The solar eclipse was the warning before the war. Okay, you should have alarm bells going off in your spirit. The solar eclipse of those days in 1811 was a warning before a war started between America and the British just a few months later. Take a look at it. Let's take a look at it. The War of 1812. War of 1812. It's also called the British-American War. It was fought by the United States and its indigenous allies against the United Kingdom and its own indigenous allies in British North America. Remember, at that time, the UK still had control over like Nova Scotia and different northern territories. It was called, in Canada, it was called British North America, right? Only the 13 colonies got their independence, but a lot of the, Canada and a lot of the northern areas were still under occupation of the crown. It began when the United States declared war on 18th of June, 1812. When did we see the eclipse? Well, September of 1811, right? There was a solar eclipse there that the 13 colonies saw. So just a few months later, boom, you got war. Although peace terms were agreed upon in the December 1814 Treaty of Ghent, the war did not officially end until the peace treaty was ratified by Congress on 17 February 1815. So you had a 3-year war that was accompanied by a massive earthquake on the New Madrid. That was accompanied by a solar eclipse just a few months before the war started. Now let's take a look at those earthquakes real quick, okay? Before we talk more about the War of 1812. The 1811 to 1812 New Madrid earthquakes were a series of intense intraplate earthquakes, beginning with an initial earthquake of magnitude, guys, check this out, oh my goodness, this is so big, 7.2 to 8.2 on December 16th, 1811. So again, when did they see the solar eclipse? September 17th. When did the earthquake start? 2 months later, right? 3 months. October, November, December. 3 months. Boom. You have earthquakes happening there. Again, I'm not saying this is going to happen again like clockwork, but man, you bet it's something to be paying attention to because, my goodness. Followed by a moment magnitude 7.4 aftershock on the same day. Then you have 2 additional earthquakes of similar magnitude followed in January and February of 1812. Guys, you have 4 earthquakes. It's a series of earthquakes. And again, it was all preceded by a solar eclipse. You guys can't make this stuff up. And a war? We're going to talk more about the war in a moment. Guys, come on. Is history repeating? I think I hear something in the background, man. I'm pretty sure I heard some minds blowing on that one, guys. Again, thank you for being here live. God bless you guys if you're catching the replay, okay? Oh my goodness, man. This is maybe the event X that the elite knew was coming, and now they're engineering a civil war on that southern border. Because why does everybody care about our borders all of a sudden, right? Come on, guys. If you don't see through that, I don't know. God bless you, but this is, they know what they're doing, okay? God is in control. He's in charge. He's the one, he's the sovereign over all this. But I'm telling you, the elites know how to manipulate cycles. They know how to set up their whatever they want to set up according to numerology and all the paganism that they're involved in, including witchcraft and all kinds of stuff, okay? But okay, those earthquakes, guys. We had 4 earthquakes. They lasted from December of 1811 all the way to February of 1812. The New Madrid is huge, guys. It is huge for our nation's history. Again, I was never taught this in history class. I don't know about you guys. I was never taught this in history class, and these are massive. Like someone pointed out in the comments. Yeah, massive earthquakes, 7.2 to 8.2. Can you imagine? And we're not even talking about. We're going to talk about Cascadia in a moment. Guys, they're talking about a 9.0 over there is due. We're in about a 3, there's about a 300 to 500 year cycle on the Cascadia. We're going to talk about that later, but they're thinking a 9.0 is possible, very likely up to 20 to 30%. We'll talk about that in a moment. Oh my goodness, this is just the one we're really going to focus on in New Madrid tonight because there's so much history loaded into it. They remain, this is what it says here, they remain the most powerful earthquakes to hit the contiguous United States east of the Rocky Mountains in recorded history. The earthquakes, as well as the seismic zone of their occurrence, were named for the Mississippi River town of New Madrid, then part of the Louisiana Territory, and now within the U.S. state of Missouri. The epicenters of the earthquakes were located in an area that at the time was at the distant western edge of the American frontier, only sparsely settled by European settlers. Contemporary accounts have led seismologists to estimate that these stable continental region earthquakes were felt strongly throughout much of the central and eastern United States across an area of roughly 50,000 square miles and moderately across near 3 million kilometers squared. Ooh. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake, by comparison, was felt moderately over roughly 6,200 square miles. So we're talking from 50,000 versus 6,200. Guys, we've never seen anything like this in our lifetime. We've never seen anything like this in our lifetime. But the reason why, again, why I think this is something we should be paying attention to, and the reason why I think it is actually likely, I'm not saying to necessarily expect it, but it is possible, is because there was a war, okay? And literally the White House was burned to the ground. Did you guys know that the White House was on fire by the British? The burning of Washington was a British invasion of Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States, during the Chesapeake campaign of the War of 1812. It was the only time since the American Revolutionary War that a foreign power captured and occupied the capital of the United States. Following the defeat of an American force at the Battle of Bladensburg on August 24th, 1814, a British army led by Major General Robert Ross marched on Washington, D.C. That night, his forces set fire to multiple government and military buildings, including the White House, then known as the Presidential Mansion, and the United States Capitol. Guys, are we looking for the burning of Washington, coupled with the New Madrid fault zone being active, coupled with this solar eclipse that we're about to see? I can't help but wonder if history is maybe not necessarily repeating, but man, it is going to rhyme